Thank you for this amazing opportunity to learn from each other. It's been said when you make a photo, you take a piece of the soul, and as well you give a part of yours. There are pieces of my soul scattered all over the earth, and indeed it's what makes me whole. However, it can take a very deep and visceral emotional toll. Sometimes ours are the only ears that hear the silent screams. Folks can't turn the page or change channels when they don't like the story. They're stuck in reality long after the headlines are gone, and you wonder how many pictures you can take until someone really sees. But when you glimpse the splendor in the human spirit, it becomes imperative to record their plight. I recently worked for an NGO called Love for the Least, who sponsored a medical mission for IDPs, refugees of ISIS, living in limbo, who survived the ISIS doctrine of hate and intolerance. Persecution, genocide, lost loved ones, desecration of holy symbols, all haunted their minds. But they still had such warmth, though are mostly lost and forgotten, even by media when their headlines lack the drama. But I was so touched by these people that I returned to Mosul for the last month of battle for liberation. I witnessed a heart-wrenching flood of humanity, wounded and weak, fleeing a nightmare of fierce fighting. Many were trapped or held as human shields. All endured a moving front line, sparked when ISIS emerged from tunnels. Rubble laced with IEDs, snipers, grenades, 130-degree brutal heat. ISIS orphans were pulled from the rubble after their parents blew themselves up with suicide bombs. So young, they already knew the meaning of shaheed, dying as a martyr. One tiny waif named Khadija kept calling out for her mother, not realizing the burns that she sustained were from her own parents' suicide bomb. A little boy was found eating raw meat. Soldiers and medics believed it was from the ISIS bodies surrounding him. They arrived at a trauma stabilization point near the front line. At one point, a woman clutched the body of her child, who had just died on the truck to safety just 2 hours previously, from hunger and dehydration while they were trapped. It was pitiful to see her holding so tightly that the medics couldn't even take her for a moment to wrap the tiny body. More desperate refugees destined for camps. I so wanted people to see them. They're not statistics. They're human beings with hopes and dreams now shattered. How on earth do you heal those kind of scars? That is a burning question. And back in the day, Kosovo's ethnic cleansing became another scar on society. Echoes of never again were spoken after the Holocaust, but sadly it never really means never, as we see with ISIS, Syria, Yemen, and on and on and on in our world. Empathy. A small word with epic meaning. We've seen throughout history how selective compassion breeds hate for the simple crime of being different. It's the source of all the isms: racism, sexism, terrorism, ageism, speciesism. It begins when one group deems others unworthy of mercy. And in my humble opinion, if all life interwoven on this planet that we share is not equal to the same level of compassion that we wish for ourselves, it becomes the foundation for abuse. And when we turn away from our oppression, our silence becomes complicity. Not sure what's happening lately, but people seem to be more openly cruel, and hate has crawled out of its dark hidden hole. Surely the planet is enraged with us. Climate change is real. It's distressing to see the damage our species has caused. And some even call it the end of days. Yet amid all the madness, there are still angels walking on earth in acts of genuine tenderness and courage that allows us to cling on to the faith and humanity that we so desire. Social media has certainly had a huge impact, but in some ways has made us a little bit more disconnected. We don't talk to each other much anymore. We text or click a like to someone's post. Photographers always seek the best light, but the most vital radiance is the inner essence. And as Robert Capa said, if your pictures aren't good enough, you're not close enough. But close enough doesn't always mean standing in the flames or gunfire. Even more difficult can be breaking the barrier of intimacy. It's a different kind of courage, to stay with a story, even when it's ripping your heart to shreds. A shoot-the-messenger mentality towards the media certainly is escalating. So often now, journalists are targets. We're not the enemy, and I really wish this dangerous rhetoric would stop. But also, seeing too much violence over morning cereal can infuriate readers, and fingers start pointing at the press for running those disturbing images. Sensitivity is important, but there is danger in censoring reality. Yes, those photos are uncomfortable to view, but for many in this world, there is no breakfast cereal or freedom from fear. And perhaps that's what society should find most intolerable, not the pictures that remind us of it. A photo can be a powerful witness and an eloquent voice. They inform, educate, enlighten, captivate, sometimes spur governments into action. They're historical documents and poignant reminders of our human frailties. They're our life's work, our legacy. It's been most humbling to view acts of genuine kindness by those some would unwisely think the least among us. Their success is not measured by wealth, but by virtue. We're challenged in our work not only to examine issues and expose problems, but also to find poetry in everyday lives. Greatness isn't found in a title or awards on your wall. It's when you treat all with dignity. When you can look past the disfigured amputee and photograph beauty, the real kind. A quotation declares in quiet simplicity, "Tell me, I'll forget. Show me, I may remember. Involve me, I'll understand." Each of us leaves behind what we've done in this odd and magnificent journey. Photojournalists are storytellers. We just write with light. But most of all, we need to remember that it's the people in front of our cameras that matter. A tapestry of experiences has profoundly enriched my life in good and bad ways. Many of these stories are just a fraction of 30-plus years of covering the world. We observe news and nuance and document such a vast range of the human condition. I've literally seen the eyes of evil, the hands of injustice, and the face of repression. A mudslide buried 25,000 people in Armero, Colombia. It was horrific. And covering Haiti's ongoing misfortunes became a mission of sorts. It was hard to see the injustice there as the world community glanced and looked away over and over and over again. The people were mirrored in a revolving door of turmoil and anarchy where kids grow up stepping over bodies near their school bus. I've climbed to a mountaintop with Haitians who believe if they just get a little closer to their God, he may finally hear them. The U.S. intervention in '94 was a whisper of hope, but life there is still wretchedly difficult. And I've wept for Haiti 1,000 times, but it's nothing compared to the profound sorrow the Haitian heart has to endure every day, especially during the devastating earthquake a few years ago. Having our work receive prestigious Pulitzers means the world, but it's bittersweet because it's usually from covering disasters. Yet we need to allow ourselves a moment of elation since, as we've seen, in an instant, the earth can tremble and life is forever altered. Pulitzers validate the importance of the story, but they don't belong to us. We simply accept them for the people in the pictures. It's about the narrative of others. Although, even though my mom was in end-stage Alzheimer's at the time, the first thing I did after the award announcement was call the nursing home and ask them to yell in her ear that I'd won a 4th Pulitzer. And I didn't think she'd understand, but I know she would have been so proud. However, later I had the opportunity to yell in her ear myself. And during a fleeting, lucid moment, she said, "Wow, get out." And I think it registered. We think people with dementia aren't in there, but but they are. Though the land was broken, the Haitian spirit survived. They prayed and mourned and moved on with the task of living. When you look past the poverty, there's an eloquence of soul. Haitians and others teach us it's not what you hold in your hand that matters. It's the qualities you hold inside. As in Puerto Rico, covering the hurricane aftermath, it was like endless salt in the wound. Yet the grace and beauty of resilience in the people transcended the tragedy of Maria in spite of their struggles. And a few years ago, I rode in a boat during Katrina in the surreal city that was New Orleans. In many homes, a display of the touchstones of life included a tenderly framed image of the beloved family pet. Animals, the most silent of victims, lost by archaic policy. Sacrificing pets did not save people, and in fact, it increased the pain. And there's now legislation to avoid these consequences in future disasters. I adopted a disabled puppy named Trixie, the last dog left of the last temporary shelter. No one wanted her. She was broken. But aren't we all broken in some way? Her unbridled joy was an inspiration to so many, especially the nursing home residents we visited. I photographed the first breath of a baby and the unmistakable expression of death as the light leaves someone's eyes. It's photos that become a lasting memorial for loved ones lost. Brutality could not extinguish the strength and Sierra Leone amputees. During the war, rebels had this very nasty habit of cutting off the limbs of civilians, even children, to intimidate the population and control blood diamond trade. Spent 4 years documenting their saga, and it's impossible to become that involved in people's lives and not become friends. They assimilated into American life, lived as an extended family, and all were adopted. A charming little 4-year-old girl named Amuna, which you'll see in one of these stories, is now with a family in D.C., and one of the greatest honors of my life was when they asked me to be her godmother, since they said the pictures were the reason they found her. She's now 22, and she recently told me it was actually her decision to bring me into the family, since I was the first person she trusted when coming to the U.S. after that horrific war. My greatest riches are the relationships that remain long after the story's over and the camera's put down. A 104-year-old dynamo named Miss Classy taught me the importance of balance while documenting her devotion to her sister bedridden with Alzheimer's. She was one of those everyday heroes that quietly lived their values in their own backyards. We spend so much time photographing other people's lives, but sometimes we forget to live our own. Classy influenced my decision to take leave and care for my own mother and sister, both fading with Alzheimer's. They died within a year of each other. There are always more stories to do, but you only have one family. Others will surely deal with complicated grief, caregiver fatigue as our elderly live longer, or endure other emotional trials, even residual damage from this career. We're humans first, not walking cameras. Society and workplaces really need to bring grief out of the closet and provide acceptance and support. High-profile photojournalists and others have told me they feel the need to appear strong and mask their sorrow, depression, PTSD, which I think many compassionate journalists have to some degree. It's nothing to feel shame about. It simply means you have a beating heart. But suffering is increased by our culture's lack of understanding. People don't need to be fixed or especially abandoned. It's pretty simple, really. Just be there. Hold a hand. Listen. Bereavement counseling and support groups help to learn coping mechanisms. My therapist once said there would be a day that I'd realize what I was meant to do with all that awful pain I had years ago. But now I know it's to try to raise awareness. But when PTSD hits with flashbacks of all the wailing women and dead babies that I photographed, it's really rough. We absorb the journey that we walk with so many along the way. I spent most of my life roaming the world and wasn't there for loved ones. Gave 500% heart and soul to every story. And there are no regrets finally making my own family priority. but there were unexpected, devastating, and profoundly hurtful professional consequences. Losing my job after the Washington Post was sold. The new regime, after the sale, didn't honor the agreement to return to my position, and it was eliminated at a time I had literally lost every person I loved most in this world. I prayed every night not to wake up the next day. But in a way, photojournalism finally saved me when I was able to focus on others once again. Although it certainly was like an earthquake under my feet, and all I trusted turned to ash, it took a long time to grab hold of the tail feathers of that phoenix rising from the ashes and choose life again. It certainly gives you greater understanding for others' trials, and now, even though there is vulnerability, I try to speak openly about my own meltdowns, trying to help people relate and perhaps find healthy outlets to discuss their own issues. I had the great fortune to work from the Graham Post for 3 decades, and the Miami Herald in the wild 80s, which I won't elaborate on. We spend our lives expecting people to open up their most intimate moments to our cameras. The least we can do is offer the same courage of transparency to promote a better understanding of the universal emotions that we all share. The burning question I have is, will society hear? Will they see? Will they change? Can we embrace each other? As I embraced my mom when she quietly slipped away, hers was the first hand I held, mine the last she grasped. Within the year, my sister also died from early onset, and so many other losses, friends, pets. I did the only thing I knew to hold on to them. I documented. The show will end with pictures of my family. There's a deep desire to do a book that might promote dialogue on these issues so that others may feel less alone than I did. Weeping is not a weakness. Grief is a natural response to love that doesn't end when the coffin closes. The eve of my sister's funeral, my dearest friend, co-worker, and my brother really, Michael DeSille, died covering Ebola in Liberia. He was a man of grace as impressive as his talent, a rare breed in today's sometimes cold corporate work ethics. But we honor those who passed by our words and our deeds, by never wavering from telling stories that must be told and rising up just a little bit higher in human decency. Especially now in these difficult years for this profession, we need to hang on to the notion that what we do is so vital, and at times offer those who feel invisible in the darkest shadows of despair that intangible and invaluable essence, hope. So we all are indeed the future. And along with the passion for storytelling, or whatever your chosen profession, hold tight to the values that first and foremost make you an ethical human being. There's a passage from Plato that I read from Michael's eulogy that I think is so very beautiful and will probably reach all the creative souls here today. The souls of people on their way to earth life pass through a room full of lights. Each takes a taper, often only a spark, to guide it in the dim country of this world. But some souls, by rare fortune, are detained longer, have time to grasp a handful of tapers, which they weave into a torch. These are the torch-bearers of humanity, its poets, seers, and saints, who lead and lift the race out of the darkness toward the light. They are the lawgivers, the light-bringers, the way-showers, and truth-tellers. And without them, humanity would lose its way in the dark. So be the light. Carry that torch. Be the answer to those burning questions. And there's only a few more pictures of my mom and my sister as they slipped away. I really do hope that, if nothing else, one person in this audience finds the courage to embrace a friend who might be going through a hard time. Everyone's around for Pulitzer parties, but when you're in the dark times, it's cliche, but you find out who your friends really are. that death is a part of life, and we'll all experience the loss of loved ones. So let's help each other. Thank you so much.